for some awesome car sounds, courtesy of my guest. Joining me here on the show, you've heard him before. That was, how fast did you say, 120 miles an hour?
120 miles an hour, yeah.
120 miles an hour through the picnic grounds at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. Matt West here hanging out with you, talking cars on the Automotive ADHD show. Of course, you can catch this show on several great radio stations here in Southern Colorado or as a podcast, which might be how you're tuning into this one. We're also on video right now, YouTube and Rumble. So my guest joining me, you recognize him. You recognize those car sounds. Jimmy Ford. Jimmy, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me on.
I'm glad to have you back on, and thank you for welcoming me to your humble abode here. If you are listening on audio, we are in Jimmy's shop right now, sitting in front of your new race car for this year.
Yes.
So I think people are, that's kind of like the elephant in the room or the Mustang in the room, right?
Right. Yeah, Thunder.
Before we get into anything else, I think people want to know about that. Tell me about that sitting there.
Okay, so sitting behind me here is a TA1 car. We picked it up out of Florida. Newcomer Plumbing and Heating is the car owner. We're calling it a 2017, even though it was built by Gateway Chassis in 2012. They did do a body change on it, and being 17, we like to call it a 2017 Mustang. It looks like a 2017, so it just fits well, I think.
It's close enough, and 17's your number.
Exactly.
Awesome. Now, tell me a little bit about this car. I mean, it's a Mustang in the way it looks only, right?
Right.
It's nothing stock. There's probably not a single stock Mustang part on it. It's a custom chassis.
Yeah, it's all tube frame chassis, kind of similar to what the Bronco was. This one's a steel chassis, tube frame. It has a carbon fiber body on it.
Okay.
And then it has a Roush Yates engine in it with some D3 heads on it, so a little bit more power than we were running last year, which is definitely helpful in getting out of the corners. It has a 4-speed G-force transmission and then a Ford 9-inch rear end. So, it definitely puts the power to the ground.
Oh, man. And in your videos that you have on your Instagram, and by the way, if you're not following this guy online, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're missing out on some of the best racing, some of the coolest stuff around. And but on your Instagram, you posted some videos of this. You've been doing some practice for the past week. This thing sounds insane. I mean, it doesn't sound normal. Yeah. Is that because it's got an equal length header, right?
Yep. And it's definitely a screamer. I mean, we turn it about 8,000, but it sounds like it turned 12,000 because it sounds, that cool.
Yeah. I love it. I can't wait to get some car sounds with that on the mountain when we're up there. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun. Now, tell me a little bit about the choice in going from the Bronco to this. The Bronco is crazy. I mean, people are like, man, he set those times in like a cardboard box, basically. It's this big square thing, But tell me the reason for switching to this chassis.
It just came up out of nowhere, honestly. We were going to get an engine from Leonard last year for the Bronco, and our sponsor, Newcomer Plumbing and Heating, was riding with us, and he was like, hey, look, I found this on Bring a Trailer. Should we bid on it? And ended up bidding on it and winning it, and brought it home, and kind of right before Pikes Peak last year, and didn't start working on it till a little bit after Pikes Peak. But then we were like, man, this is going to be a perfect Pikes Peak car, a TA1 car up on Pikes Peak. That's going to be sweet.
Yeah. So if you think about, when you go on Facebook Marketplace late at night, right? And you're like, by 5 a.m., you're driving out somewhere to pick up a car.
Right.
This is the same idea, but just scaled up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bring a Trailer, and they delivered it and all that stuff. So it was cool.
That is awesome. And, of course, you've been up on the practice days now. And firstly, how is the road treating you up there? I know it can change every year. There's new things. There's sheep that walk out into the road and stuff like that. How's that been treating you so far?
So the road's been good so far. There was a couple of extra bumps at the top that were actually fixed. I wouldn't even call it a bump. It was like a ditch, but they repaved it, and now it's kind of back to normal. By normal, I mean pretty bumpy, but still not as bumpy as it was. The road, I mean, it's been about the same as last year, so nothing's really changed now that they fixed that upper section. So I think it's going to be good.
That's going to be good. So, and of course, then you're kind of banking on some of that experience from last year too, right? Going into this year.
Yeah, it definitely helps having one complete run. so that helps a little bit. And then just muscle memory, basically, and that's gonna push us forward with the Mustang, and get us a little bit quicker too.
Right. And are there any things that you would say that you've learned now, this being the third year you're coming back to the Pikes Peak Hill Climb? Are there some things you've kind of learned from the very start, maybe some ideas that are different than you imagined initially?
Yeah, I think that just starting out slow and working your way into it definitely would be something that you don't want to go all out, and kind of conserve a little bit, saving your car and stuff for race day, race week, all that kind of stuff. I think that is one thing that's kind of beneficial, being up there before, that you take with you for the next year.
So just kind of pacing yourself,
exactly,
a little bit, right?
Exactly.
I think people have this misconception that, especially people who aren't into racing, that you're just going to go out and you're going to go as fast as possible the whole time. But I mean, you're conserving tires, you're conserving brakes. Even on the mountain, you're pacing yourself because of that altitude difference, even.
Exactly. Yeah, and running oxygen definitely helps for myself. But yeah, pacing yourself is probably one of the biggest things right now. Of course, on race day, it'll be a little bit different. We'll want to lay it all down, but that's when you can go all out. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Awesome. And that's where I've heard guys, say, and I think you've even mentioned this before, when it comes to the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, just finishing is usually the goal.
Yeah.
Right. I think you've said that before on the show.
Exactly.
I've talked to some other drivers on the show before, and especially people their first year doing it, their second year doing it. They say, hey, I just want to finish. Right. And I'm not even going for a crazy time.
Right.
Because I just want to finish and not crash. So they invite me back next year. Right?
Exactly.
And is that kind of, now that you're going into this is the third year you're doing it, are you kind of seeing where you can push that envelope a bit?
Yeah, it definitely, you look for places you can push it now a little more here and there. It's obviously the first year up there, you're definitely looking for the goal is to finish it. But now after the first year, you're moving forward, you have a new car and stuff like that. So you're wanting to push it a little more and more, especially with a faster car, more aerodynamics. You're looking for every inch that you can get now.
Right. And obviously you've got a lot more aerodynamically kind of going into this now. Now I noticed this car is still pretty low. How does that handle with all the big bumps and the whoops and the asphalt up there?
It's not the best across all the bumps, but it's a sacrifice that you have to make. You either set the car up for the top or you set it up for the bottom. And for me, I want to set it up for the bottom in the middle sections and, just skate through the bumps, and that's just how it has to be.
Awesome. And of course, you've got your whole family helping you out with this endeavor, right? We've got a little bit of a studio audience here as well. They're hanging out. And so tell me a little bit about that. We've got about a minute left here in this segment, but tell me a little bit about, what that's like going in with, the racing takes all these resources and you got these big teams, but, you're bringing in the whole family and you're doing this not with, a manufacturer's budget, right?
Right. Yeah. And it definitely takes the whole family. And then we have a lot of resources that we use. One of them just walked in. Stanley, he's our machine shop guy. He definitely helps us out a bunch too. So
awesome. And it's, and that's one of those things. One of the best things you can do if you're listening to this right now is go over and support Jimmy Ford, support the entire family as they're going into this. You can go to the website, jimmyfordracing.com.
Yep.
jimmyfordracing.com. Go there, support these guys, buy a t-shirt, buy a sticker, do something really cool, because you're going to be ripping up that mountain, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. People see race day, and there's so much more that goes into that. Now, Jimmy, you've also got a nonprofit, and I want to talk about that here coming up in the next segment, because this is really cool. You're getting kids into racing who maybe otherwise couldn't.
Right.
So we're going to get into that here as we're wrapping up the segment here, and we're going to talk a little bit about that after the break. Now, you are listening to the Automotive ADHD Show, AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer, 91.7 KLZR and AM 1400 KRLN. That's a lot of radio stations right there. Don't miss a minute of this show and catch it as a podcast. We're going to be back after the break with Jimmy Ford right here. It's hill climb season. I'm Matt West, host of the Automotive ADHD Show, Colorado Springs' only car show on the radio. This Friday, I'm live streaming my show from the Hemmings.com footprint at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb Fan Fest, brought to you by Gran Turismo. While I'm there, you'll have a chance to win an incredible Hemmings prize pack. Also joining me on the show are Pikes Peak Hill Climb drivers Jimmy Ford, Ethan Hunter, and more. So join me downtown Friday afternoon, then tune into the radio show Saturday morning at 9.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
Yes, it is. Matt West here, talking cars with you on the weekend with a special guest. You recognize him on this show. He's been here before, and he is going to the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb now for the third time. Jimmy Ford, welcome back to Automotive ADHD.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Really excited to have you on, and of course, we've got a live studio audience here, too. Can we get a round of applause from the studio here? There we go. They're like, wait, why is he pointing at us?
Yeah.
But really exciting stuff. Of course, you know, racing the hill climb is no small feat, and you've got a whole team, a great crew of people all working together to help you get up that mountain as fast as possible. But you are also starting, we were talking about this before the break in the last segment, but you are starting a nonprofit that helps kids get into racing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my whole goal with that is to help either if they want to drive, be a part of the crew, however they want to, but I think it's a good way to, it's like a family sport for us. So if, you know, some kids are interested in racing and they don't really have the support or stuff that they need to get into it, that's kind of where I want to come in and help, you know, get them into racing in some form or fashion.
And what's the nonprofit called?
It's called Jimmy Ford Racing is the nonprofit name. And we just started it, so we're getting it underway. We're still working out the bugs and trying to get it going. But yeah, our goal is to help younger kids, probably up to age 25 or so. There's not really a set limit, but, you know, just help them out, get them into racing.
Right. Because racing can be really hard to get into. I mean, just specifically in the financial sense. I mean, you know that for sure.
Right. And we wouldn't be able to do it without the support that we have too. So, you know, it's if we can help others do the same thing that we're doing, I think that would be beneficial.
Absolutely. And just to, you know, kind of put that into context, I mean, you're, you know, for the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, I mean, obviously that's racing at a very high level, but even getting people into grassroots motorsports, getting them behind the wheel, maybe getting them working on the cars. You know, I mean, for example, you've got this wall of tires sitting over here. Right. And, you know, if you're just getting into racing, that might be kind of hard to make that happen. But also just the skills and the knowledge. And I think the mentorship, right?
Right. Exactly. Mentorship is a big part of it. It helps, you know, educate them. I think that's big part of what we do in racing is trying to educate the next person in line to get them where, you know, they're successful in their goals.
Well, and I think, you know, that ties into as well when I've talked to you before on the show, you know, how you've said that you've had some great mentors getting into the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, people who've, you know, given you tips and pointers and, hey, this is how you do this, or this is how we're doing it. Maybe try that. Are there any things like that you can kind of think of just to kind of reinforce that, you know, the mentorship level and the learning part of racing doesn't stop once you're in racing, right? It's a continually learning thing.
Right. It definitely goes on and passes down. And it's been one thing that's helped me in racing. So if I can pass that on, that's part of my goal.
Awesome. I love it. Now, can people find info on the nonprofit as well on your website?
I don't really have the nonprofit going on my website yet, but the best way would be to like message me on Instagram or any social media, and we could talk a little bit more about it. It's one thing that we're trying to get going is our website. It's a little bit difficult with the nonprofit to try and get it going, but we're working on it.
Right. Well, and of course, there's always hoops to jump through with a nonprofit. Things take a little bit longer, right? There's a lot of back-end paperwork type of hoops you got to jump through. So I think it's really amazing that you are doing this nonprofit. You're helping kids get into motorsports. I mean, I think that's something that's, I mean, especially important these days, you know, is keeping kids interested, A, in cars, but B, in racing, you know, the next generation of that. And I think, you know, especially too, kids, you know, being able to keep them out of trouble.
Right.
That's also really good. So, no, I think that's great. And so that nonprofit, Jimmy Ford Racing, also the same name as your racing team,
right.
Jimmy Ford Racing. And I think it's about racing.
Yeah, might be safe bet there.
Yeah, safe bet. Okay. Now, let's go into a little bit of some of the other racing that you're doing. You were talking earlier between the break here about NASA. You're doing some racing in NASA. You're not just doing the Pikes Peak Hill Climb. Of course, you've also been really involved in like the Colorado Hill Climb Association. What other avenues of racing are you pursuing outside of the hill climb?
Yeah, so NASA series, we have 2 races that we've been to already down in Pueblo, and in September, I believe, we're looking to make it out to the Nationals in Utah
Okay.
Motorsports Campus.
Okay.
We'll bring the Mustang out there, and it's a 4-day event, so I think that's going to be, second to Pikes Peak this year. That's kind of where we're focused on outside of Pikes Peak is the NASA series. It's a good series to get involved in, and we're having a lot of fun with that too.
Awesome. And are you using the same chassis, the same setup, everything there?
Yep. We'll probably a little bit different of a setup, but same car, same everything with the engine, transmission, all that stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. And that helps keep things a little consistent, keep parts consistent.
Exactly.
All of the above. And out of curiosity, I saw the Bronco sitting back over there in the corner. What are you doing with that? Is it available now for other things?
I don't know. We were tossing maybe going to Goodwood with the Bronco, but I think that kind of fell through. There were some things that came up, and so we're saving it for right now. We haven't made up our mind on what we're going to do with it, but if the option of going to Goodwood again pops up, we definitely want to bring the Bronco there. So we'll hang on to it for a little bit longer and see.
Awesome. I love it. And now as we're getting ready, we're gearing up for Hill Climb Week here. And I mean, I say Hill Climb Week. I mean, you've been doing Hill Climb Week for a couple of weeks now already. But what do you have to do in terms of prep right now, going into the race? We're looking forward to the race here. It's coming up. What else do you have to do to feel ready to go? Or do you ever feel 100% ready when you're heading up there?
Yeah, there's always something in the back of your mind, like, did we check this? Did we double check that? But I think we're pretty prepared. We did last weekend during testing, we put our race day engine in just to make sure that we had 1 day of testing on the engine and that there was no bugs that we needed to work out before we go up and start qualifying our first day up on the peak. And so I think we're about as prepared as we can get. Just a little maintenance stuff, oil changes and things like that we'll do before race day, but nothing too crazy this year. No crazy stuff coming up. So.
Well, that's good. You can you got a little bit of a method down probably.
Yeah.
Compared to starting from the first time, you're learning it as you go, and now you've sort of got a little bit of a method down. And I remind you, listening to this show, this is a guy who also works a full-time job on top of all of this, as well as everybody who's involved with it. And we got just a minute or two left. How do you juggle all of that? Obviously, you'd probably tell work, hey, I'm taking some PTO time to go race Pikes Peak, and they're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, work is pretty supportive. It's a very flexible job right now, and so it's kind of I need a day off so we can work on the car, get it ready for testing, and they're like, okay, see you Monday or see you whenever you're back, and so that definitely is helpful with work being flexible with us. So they're excited for us. A lot of people are following, watching us from work, and as well as different avenues that people are watching, but they're definitely supportive, so it helps.
Awesome. I love that. And now, speaking of people supporting you, are there any sponsors specifically that you want to shout out, mention? I mean, obviously, all of them, right? Because everyone's coming together to make this happen, but who are the folks who are directly supporting you and your family as you're going up that mountain?
Yeah, I had mentioned Newcomer Plumbing and Heating earlier in the podcast. He's definitely been a game changer for our racing program. And then Iron Wolf Designs, they've been supportive to us since we first started. The new one that came on with us that's been a big help on cutting costs on our tire program is Hoosier Racing Tire. They have a Mark Sanzenbacher comes out and helps us during testing and stuff, and gave us some good deals on some tires, and they're sticking really good. So I'm happy with Hoosier. We have All Rental, that's now Hertz Rental here in town, and a few other sponsors that have kind of pitched in a little bit here and there, and so we're happy with what we have right now.
Awesome. I love it. And of course, if you're listening and you want to be a part of it as well, jimmyfordracing.com. You've got t-shirts and things and stuff up there people can buy and support you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say that Automotive ADHD podcast helped us get a word out here and there too. So yeah, go online and check us out.
Awesome. Hey, glad to be a part of it. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me here on the show, welcoming me into the shop here, hanging out here and talking cars, talking some Pikes Peak hill climb. Again, his website is jimmyfordracing.com. And thank you to listening to this edition of the Automotive ADHD show. You can find it where fine shows and, well, mine are downloaded, other places like that. I'll see you next week when we're talking more cars right here